This video introduces the statistical procedures that will be covered in this class, as well as the statistical procedures that are not covered in this class, but that you might find helpful to use at some point in your research. So I will mention those procedures for you, and at some point you can explore the documentation on them on your own. So the first statistical procedure we will be covering is Proc Freq. And I know we've used Proc Freq to look at frequency distributions, but there are a number of statistics that are available to us through Proc Freq. We can do a comparison of proportions. Proc Freq allows us to do one sample tests and goodness of fit tests. With Proc Freq you can do chi-square tests, the Fisher's exact test, a test for trend, McNemar's test, and calculate a kappa statistic. Proc Freq is also used for relative risk and odds ratio calculations, and Proc Freq can be used when you're dealing with summary counts instead of patient-level data. We will also be looking at Proc Univariate, and some of the tests that we can use Proc Univariate for are the signed test and the signed rank test. Both are non-parametric tests. We can also use Proc Univariate for tests of location and normality. With Proc Means, we can use that for calculating a paired t-test. Proc t-test is used to do a t-test comparing two independent means or a paired t-test. Proc ANOVA is used for analysis of variance where we're comparing more than two means, and it handles balanced ANOVA designs. Proc GLM is the preferred procedure for doing univariate analysis of variance, multivariate analysis of variance, and most types of regression. Proc ANOVA could also be used to do the analysis of variance when the design is balanced. The only advantage in using Proc ANOVA is that it uses less computational resources. Its use is recommended only for large projects in which you are assured that the design is balanced. The non-parametric procedure that's used often in SAS is Proc NPAR one-way, and it allows you to compare two groups, so you would be comparing the medians in two groups, as well as doing a non-parametric ANOVA, specifically the Kruskal-Wallis test. And when you're doing a comparison of two independent groups with Proc NPAR one-way, that's the same as the Mann-Whitney test, or also referred to as the Wilcoxon rank sum test. Two procedures that are used when we're looking at the association of continuous variables: Proc Core, which does correlation analysis. Specifically, it calculates Pearson and Spearman correlation coefficients. Proc Reg is used for simple linear regression, multiple linear regression, and residual analysis. The ability of Proc Reg to do residual analysis is unequaled in other SAS procedures and is the main reason for developing regression models using Proc Reg rather than using Proc GLM. So you can do regression with Proc GLM, but if you're going to be doing a lot of residual analysis, I recommend using Proc Reg. So these are the procedures that I am going to be covering both in this week's class and next week's class. The statistical procedures that are not covered in this class but are very valuable procedures to read up on because you may need them in your research include Proc Logistic, which does logistic regression. It's used for binary and ordinal response data. Proc Life Test, which produces survival estimates and compares survival curves. Proc Mixed, also Proc GenMod and Proc Glimix, fits a variety of mixed linear models. And what I mean by a mixed linear model is it's a generalization of the standard linear model used in the GLM procedure. For example, data are permitted to exhibit correlation and non-constant variability. And finally, Proc Freg is used to do Cox proportional hazard regression. So again, it's working with time to event data. So these are procedures that I'm not covering, but that you can read up on and use now that you're more familiar with the SAS programming language. Now view the SAS demonstration video, Statistical Tests 1.